Hey there, it's Egwin from Scope of Life and Beyond Systems. This is an add-on to part 1 of how to restructure the arches of your foot. Basically, it is a video answer to a question that some of you asked in the comments. And that question was, why do we actually angle the feet to 45 degrees and why do we walk sideways? Plus, what's the exact position of the torso in regard to the pelvis and to the feet? At least that's how I understood that question. So, since that's a little bit complicated to describe in writing, I figured I'll do a video answer about that, and also it might be interesting for more people than just those who read the comments. So I'm going to explain right now why we angle the feet at 45 degrees. I'm going to show you that from a different perspective so that everything gets really clear. One thing here, our main goal, the main thing we want to achieve in this specific exercise is to train the lateral arch and the medial and also the longitudinal arch of the foot, transversal arch. So basically what we want is we want the foot, or both feet in this case, to be worked at. What we don't want is we don't want to put extra strain on the joints in a way that's not physiological or not that physiological. And so the real idea behind all this is to work mainly on the arches. But it also is something where it's about the angling, obviously, in the hip joints, because that's where some of the action actually happens. So it's about force transmission behind my rear and my front foot. So let me get this other angle for you to see that and to really understand what I'm talking about. See you in a second. Alright, so let's use those tiles on the ground to explain what I'm talking about. Now this would be standing completely parallel, obviously. Now, for instance, on the inside edges of the feet or in the crossed version on the outside edges of my feet. Now what I described in part 1 of how to restructure the arch of the foot is that this is the direction we want to go. So the direction we want to go is actually along the line, let's say, between those two rows of tiles here. And then furthermore we say, alright, let's put the heel on that line and let's put the ball of the foot on that other part of the line. So what this does, obviously, I'm holding the camera a little higher right now, my pelvis is also angled. So I'm not trying to have my pelvis parallel to the tiles. It's rather my pelvis is also at an angle. But look at my toes right now. My pelvis is parallel, but my pelvis is not parallel to the tiles, but it's at a 90-degree angle towards my feet. So basically, my pelvis and the direction of my feet, that's a 90-degree angle here. When I put my feet closer together, like so, now they're extremely close. Now you see my pelvis and my feet. Now this is pretty much as if I was standing with complete parallel feet. Alright? So you see my pelvis and the tips of my toes, the line that connects the tips of my toes and the line of my pelvis, those two are parallel right now. Now when I turn my left foot 45 degrees and when I turn my right foot 45 degrees towards this line on the ground here, and I have my feet this close together, Still, my pelvic ring and the line that connects my toes are parallel to each other. Now in this position, that's what I say in the exercise, you need your legs, when you work the inside edges of your feet, you need your feet further apart. The second I pull this right foot back here, the heel is on that same line. The second I pull my right foot back there. Now notice, that's the direction of my pelvic ring. Now the connection line between my toes is at a completely different angle now. This is my pelvis, and that's the connection line between my toes. So now I have an angle. That's pretty much as if I was standing in a stepping position. Yeah? In this stepping position, that's the position of my pelvis, and the connection between my big toes is at an angle towards the transversal direction of my pelvis here. So basically what I do with this, that was the starting position. Now I turned my left foot at a 45 degree angle towards this line, and I push my rear foot out here. Now I need a certain distance between my feet in order to properly be able to work the inside edges of my feet. And by doing so, but by keeping my pelvic ring sort of at a 90 degree angle towards the direction my toes are pointing, so that's where my toes are pointing, and that's the direction of my pelvis, and that's 90 degrees here. So as soon as I do that, there is a slight difference in the position of my hip joints between the left and the right. And when I start to transfer weight to have this rocking motion between the right inside edge and the left inside edge of my feet, right now, what happens in the foot is that the pressure is actually transmitted diagonally through the foot. Whereas when I stand with my feet completely parallel to each other and also the tips of my toes completely parallel, the connection line between the tips of my toes parallel to my pelvis, and I push, even if I go further apart, and I push from the right to the left, what happens is that the force goes from the inside exactly to the outside. So pretty much at a 90 degree angle towards the direction my foot and my toes are pointing. But what I want is the force actually to go slightly diagonal, because this ensures, like so, now without twisting my pelvis, I'm simply pushing from my right towards the left. But what this does is, it works the left arch of the foot from this angle rather than from that angle. This makes a major difference in my ankle joints. It's much more physiological, and it also helps with stabilizing the foot in its way. It's sort of span out towards the front, from the heel towards the ball of the foot area. So this diagonal, this diagonal tensional pattern in the foot is supported by that. Now, that's one of the reasons why we angle the feet. The other reason is so that we can do a continuous movement where my rear leg can cross in front of the other, and when we've been at when we just did the outside edges, that my rear foot once again can cross behind the front one. So basically, it's those two things. It's really, I want a certain angle for the rocking motion, and I want to be able to slide my feet, to slide my feet properly without having to circle them around each other. So in this case, it's about the fluidity in my hip joint, this pulling through. This supports the grounding effect and helps me in my hip joint, because that's a clear abduction, and this is an abduction. So basically, it also triggers something in my hip joint that helps me to keep my toes pointing towards the front while walking, rather than having them turned out like so. Right, as for the upper body, it's not that important whether or not the upper body angles towards my front foot or angles to the side. What is important is the position of my pelvis, and whatever happens in the thoracic spine up here, this is not something that is in prime focus for this exercise. So when we do this exercise from here and then just pulling through down there, whether my upper body is turned completely towards the camera right now, or my upper body is turned towards the front, doesn't really make that much of a difference for the actual exercise for the arches of the feet. It does make a difference for the hip mobility and for how well I'm grounded through my pelvic ring into my legs. So there is a big difference there. But that's not the main focus of this exercise as I explained it in this video. That's the important thing here. For the arches, it doesn't really make a difference in terms of this is right or this is wrong. It does change the tensional patterns a little bit, but best case scenario and worst case scenario at the same time, turning your upper body more towards the front foot or turning it more to the side just simply adds more variety to the pressure points on the feet there actually, and to the vectors, to the force vectors on your feet that we are actually playing with. So that's pretty much it. There is no right or wrong here. If you're looking for something where you say, okay, but that's the most neutral way to do it, then I'd suggest, okay, go 45-degree angle, 1 foot length apart, open up properly, make sure that your pelvis, as mentioned before, is at a 90-degree angle towards the direction where the toes are pointing, and just simply see to it that your upper body is pretty much in line with your pelvis. But the second, for instance, you cross over, in order to stabilize yourself, you will automatically rotate your upper body just a little bit in order to balance between the feet. Because in this position, in this crossed over position, standing completely neutral with the pelvis is sometimes a little bit challenging. That's okay. If you have to rotate your upper body in order to be more stable, thus, in this case, translating to you can focus more on what you're actually supposed to do and have to use less tension in your legs in order to balance, then that's something you should definitely do. So, to put that in a simple sentence, when you cross over and your legs in this position now are crossed, there is this issue of a little bit instability between the left and the right. Granted, it's better to balance that by rotating your upper body into a position where you feel safe and balanced just from the distribution of your weight, rather than trying to stabilize this instability just by tensing up the muscles in your legs. Because the second you tense up the muscles in your legs more, you lose a little bit of this fine mechanical control of where you're actually pushing with this rocking motion in the arches of your feet. So this is pretty much it. And as for the grounding effect, especially when you focus more on this pulling through of the leg, and it's more about the swiping than it is about the rocking. So when it's really more for you about this being grounded, sinking into your legs, and you really want to work on this very fine motorical stabilization for your pelvis, this mechanical stabilization of your pelvis, how to position your legs in such a way that the pelvis is most relaxed, but you still have, well, the most dynamic in this movement down there, working, whether you're moving left or right, doesn't matter. When this centralizing grounding effect is more in your focus, then you'll naturally use your upper body more to counterbalance what's happening in your feet. So there are actually two things that kind of mix match with each other, and you can focus more on the one or more on the other. I hope that helps and clarifies the things. If not, please leave a comment down below again and point out what is still unclear, and I'll make sure to try and answer it in a even more precise way. Other than that, thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye!